Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to Try This at Work. I'm Brent Witchell and I'm joined by my good friend and colleague Chris Lahamadou. And starting today, you can look forward to many future Try This at Work episodes where we will cover all of the great experiences within the modern workplace powered by Microsoft 365. Today's episode is super cool and exciting because we're going to cover one of the newer solutions offered by Microsoft 365 called Microsoft Teams. But first, a few logistical items to help you keep engaged and informed from here on out on all things related to Try This at Work. So first, what I'd like you to do is maybe open up your favorite browser and go visit TryThisAtWork. So yes, it seems like an awkward URL, but it's actually really handy for us because it's TryThisAt.work instead of .com. So again, earmark that, favorite it, go to your favorite browser. It's a responsive UI website, and that's where you can really connect and follow along with all of the Try This at Work efforts from here on out. So if you visit the website, what's really nice is, again, it's responsive UI, and this is where we'll post all of the past recordings of every event that we hold from here on out. It's also where you can easily go in and join today's webcast and any other webcast that we produce here at Try This at Work. And then obviously people like to win stuff, so we love giving away things at Try This at Work. And so today we'll be giving away to one of our lucky audience members a brand new Wobo wallet. If you haven't seen a Wobo wallet, check out the URL there. Again, this is all available at TryThisAt.work, the URL. But you'll see this pretty simple to join and or to try and win the Wobo wallet. You simply send an email with a screenshot. Now the email needs to come from your work address. Send a screenshot of you using Microsoft Teams, because that's what our episode is about today, with your name, and we'll draw randomly one of the people that send us an email fitting this criteria, and you'll be off to the races, hopefully winning one of those great, fabulous prizes. And then also at the TryThisAt.work website, you'll see these lineup of all of these scheduled Try This at Work webcasts from here on out. Obviously, you can reach out to us. You can sign up to hear about future events that we offer. So we'll put you on a mailing list if you'd like, or just check back and you'll see this full lineup of events. And then if you want to drop us a line, give us suggestions, feel free to click the Drop Us a Line button at the bottom. So again, just to reiterate, point your browser to TryThisAt.work, not .com, but .work. And you'll be off to the races engaging and interacting with us here at the Try This at Work crew. All right, so let's get on to the topic at hand. So many of us, I think if we're honest with ourselves, would look around and say, you know, the people that I work with today try and do things a little differently, and they walk in the front door of our organization wanting to do things differently from a work perspective and from a collaboration and communication perspective than perhaps we did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, depending on how long you've been in the workforce. You would, I think you'd all agree that the way people are showing up wanting to work increasingly is different than in the past. And so one of the studies that we know, the independent experts have shown, is that by the year 2020, the workforce is going to be full of probably about 40 to 50% millennials. And so one of the things that I know for a fact, because I have some millennials that live in my house, is none of those millennials that I am aware of make it a habit of checking email. So there's a new way of work out there. Microsoft is super exciting to see all the things we're doing to kind of map to the way that people continually want to work as they enter the workforce. And so the great news is the topic today is Microsoft Teams, and it is smack dab in the center of our strategy around providing the best modern workplace experience to you while you're at work. So let's take a look a little closer. So most of you, if you've been in the workforce for a while, you probably know us for the things that are listed here, right? So I personally, for the past, gazillion years, I would show up to work and I would immediately find myself opening up Outlook, and that's where I'd look at my calendar and I'd look for emails and I'd look for people trying to reprioritize my day, right? Then if you move over to the right, you see that we have voice and video meetings powered by Skype for Business, right? Again, all of these are components that are part of Microsoft 365. And so then you move to the right another step, and you'll see that we have some very rich co-authoring and creating content experiences. Originally in Windows, now we have native experiences in iOS, Android, MacBook, in the browser. And so Chris is going to show you later in the demo some new ways of creating content that we're excited to get in front of you. Also, SharePoint's been around forever and a day, and we continue to invest heavily in things like hub sites and communication sites and all of the richness and the document-centric innovation that we continue to invest in with SharePoint. And then, of course, one of the newest additions to Microsoft 365 is this whole idea of enterprise social. We'll get into that in a few moments, but really that's powered by an experience called Yammer, which a lot of our customers are truly taking great advantage of to make sure they're connecting and empowering their users across the board. So the reason I show you this is it's very relevant because probably 3 or 4 years ago, we started hearing from customers that folks coming into the workforce right out of college are expecting to work a little differently, right? So they've got they're great handle on how to collaborate in their consumer world. And so they want to bring those types of experiences into the professional world. And so this is where we looked at the way that they want to work, which is in this, it's really centric around this persisted group chat based workspace. And we said, you know what, we have a deficit there, right? And so we need to go and make sure that we're offering that type of an experience to the people that have invested in our productivity and collaboration and communication experiences. And so what we did is we went back to the drawing board and we from scratch wrote Microsoft Teams. It was released a little bit less than a year ago, so it's fairly new to a lot of you, which is why we're super excited to get in front of you today and walk you through kind of what it's about and then how it works and show it off to you. But one of the things that I love talking to customers about is the fact that what makes us truly unique from a Microsoft Teams perspective is how we integrate our chat-based workspace, that hub for teamwork, Microsoft Teams, into the rest of all of those other capabilities that you already experience on the right-hand side of this slide. And so I don't know if a lot of you went to the Ignite conference in August of last year, but one of the things that we at Microsoft loved that was something we took away is, you know, after every session, we ask people to review the session and then we count the attendance at every session. So we are blown away by the fact that the Microsoft Teams keynote was the most attended session and it was the best reviewed session, right? So it told us a lot of the investments we're making in the strategy that is focused on Microsoft Teams moving forward to offer that, that modern workplace to all of your users. Is really landing well with all of our customers across the board. And so now what we start hearing, we've got customers that are fully immersed in using Teams, and they're coming to us and saying, listen, we're finding from our users that are leveraging Microsoft Teams that Teams is a lot like Outlook used to be, where it is the hub for teamwork, right? So they come in the morning and they're not launching Outlook, right? There is a huge growing number of people that come in the morning and just launch Teams and they can get all of their work done. And not only all of their work done, but they can connect and bring in all of those experiences across each of those other parts of Microsoft 365 right into Microsoft Teams, right? So that's why we call it the hub for teamwork. Chris is going to, when he shows you the demonstration, he's going to show you how everything he does now to collaborate and communicate with others happens in this one pane of glass that's called Microsoft Teams. Again, that hub for teamwork. Gone are the days of me having to bounce around and go to browsers and other third-party apps to get things done. We connect all of these experiences right into that wonderful chat-based workspace called Microsoft Teams. On top of that, we also offer, and we've innovated and brought to you a ton of born in the cloud other value adds, things like Microsoft Planner, which is a task-based a task management experience that is part of Microsoft 365 that allows you to assign and delegate and view all of the tasks that are related to a specific group of people trying to get something done, right? Then those same people typically try and measure how they're doing, right, with a specific project. And that's where Power BI is, that data analytics and visualization offering from Microsoft 365 that allows you to really pull those insights right into, as an example, a channel within a team that you're working with a group of people to accomplish something. Then we obviously integrate in things like meeting notes using the experience offered by OneNote. And so all of your notes in the cloud, but spun up specifically for this group of people coming together within teams to get something done. And then, of course, you would be lost if you didn't have access to all of your files. So in the Teams experience, I have access to every file that I could imagine. And then we also do some interesting things around video. So a lot of folks, when they're working on a project, they have a video experience that they want to either use for research or publish to people. And so that's where we provision this video channel. It's very similar to like a Vimeo or a YouTube channel, but it's specifically for your team of people coming together to get something done within Teams. And so all of these rich experiences now make their way right into the Teams environment, which is why increasingly we hear people talk about it as that hub for teamwork. So I will say, as soon as we announced Microsoft Teams, probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and told the world that we're working on this new experience, there was a bit of confusion out there. And the main confusion was, hey, when would a customer, or when would we tell our users to go use Teams? And when would we tell them to go use a product like Yammer? And first and foremost, I want to get out in front of this and say, if you are using one without the other, you're missing out for sure. And so what happened at Ignite is Satya, our CEO, got on stage and said, hey, here's the way we think of starting a conversation, right? And so specifically, I'm going to drill into the whole Teams versus Yammer, but these are all the different ways that you can start a conversation within your company. And it really boils down to the difference between this inner loop and this outer loop. And if you look at the inner loop on the left, it's the people coming together that you normally work with on a regular basis to get something done, right? We all show up at work and we have to accomplish something in order to get a paycheck. Well, accomplishing that something is a perfect experience, and it's a layup, if you will, for that inner loop or using Microsoft Teams. Then if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see that Yammer is perfect for interacting with people in your outer loop, those people that you connect with openly across an organization. We see a lot of HR teams reaching out to all of their employees, using it as a form of interacting and engaging with employees from an HR perspective. We see corporate communications teams leveraging Yammer to push the word out about, hey, the CEO is going to be on, the TV station tonight at 8. Make sure you invite your family. We see CEOs and other leadership positions using Yammer as a way of saying, hey, here's what's top of mind from your leadership perspective. Here's some challenges, engaging with all the employees to say, hey, if you've got great ideas or experience in a certain area, make sure you jump into this conversation and the leadership team will reach out. Maybe you can help us be more agile as a company. So all of those things, again, I want to reiterate, if you're solving for the outer loop without the inner loop, or the inner loop without the outer loop, you're missing out as a company. And so we're going to show you the value of each here moving forward. So I want to give you an example of a great use case for the outer loop, just so you walk away from this session saying, okay, I get it. I now clearly see the delineation between using one solution to interact with my outer loop and one to interact with my inner loop. And so the scenario we're going to talk about is we have a great customer, happens to be an airline, and they approached their account team and said, hey, listen, we've got we've got these people that their entire job is they show up to the airport, they hop on an airplane with maybe a half a dozen crew members, and that's really their rendition of work, right? So we sometimes lose out on our corporate culture, how to engage them, how to harness all of the knowledge they have in helping our customers throughout the year as they're servicing them on an airplane, right? And so one of the things that our account team said is, look, this seems like a perfect use case for that outer loop, right, solution. And so that outer loop solution for us is Yammer. And so this customer basically launched Yammer about 2 years ago. And within 2 months, they had 11,000 users inside of their Yammer network engaging and interacting with each other across silos. They had leadership in there, trying to say, hey, here's our corporate culture, all of those things we talked about moments ago. But there was one use case that stood out that was kind of a flagship scenario that we hear over and over and over again with regards to this outer loop or using Yammer. And that is, there was a few of these crew members, and they'd gotten a notification that they were going to be part of this new airplane that the company was launching. And so they were pretty excited. They said, great, new bells and whistles, and let's go check out this new airplane that we're going to be hopping on, in the near future. And so one of the things that they realized was that the galley that was part of this new airplane, the design of it was horrible. So it was very obvious to them that all the knowledge that they had from the years of servicing airlines in the past, right, had never been tapped into by the engineering team. And so the engineering team had the current design of the galley of this airplane such that everybody that this one person started talking to said, yeah, that's a horrible design. So what they did is they leveraged Yammer, and they said, hey, let's reach out first of all and find others who are also assigned to this, this specific airplane we're launching soon. And so when they did that, they quickly realized, and this is what we call crowdsourcing, right? So all of the folks from across the company that were also assigned to one of these airplanes, they all started agreeing and saying, wow, that's so true. Like the customers are not going to like it. It's harder for us to do our jobs, right? We just didn't take into consideration all the things that we should have when we had the opportunity to solve for a lot of the problems that we're faced with every day as crew members. And so they even went so far as a couple of them got a pen and paper out, and they sketched out their own design of how they would have changed the galley. And one of the things that they realized is the engineering team, which is an entirely different silo, has also a Yammer group, right? And so Yammer is great for connecting different silos within an organization. And so here you have a group of crew members that are going to be assigned to this airplane now reaching out to the engineering team. Well, that probably wouldn't have been as successful as normal or in the past, except they had all this data now. They said, hey, look, we'd like you to invite you into our Yammer group, and we want to share with you what we as crew members are all agreeing upon, right? You need to change the design of this galley because we all are telling you that our customers are going to be less happy, and we as employees of this airline are going to be less happy. And so the great news is it took about 2 weeks for them to connect and give all the data and work and hand over the drawings to the engineering team. And at the end, these folks that used to show up every day and just be confined to this airplane and never have a voice in the company, never have the ability to reach out and connect to people across silos like the engineering team, they now are the heroes of the company because a huge investment was almost lost, right? And it would have resulted in less happy customers and probably lower satisfaction from employees of getting on that airplane had they not been able to use this outer loop solution called Yammer to go and drive this change within their organization. So we hear those types of stories over and over and over again when it comes to Yammer, right? Most companies have a lot of pressure to stay competitive, and being able to harness people's passion and their experiences in the past to connect across silos and do things just like this are extremely important for organizations moving forward. So that's kind of a great example of the outer loop. So let's talk now about the inner loop because we're here to talk about Microsoft Teams. So the example I always use is this idea of an HR team. And so in HR, you have different needs than everybody else in the company, right? You probably need a private space where you can go and you're going to hire people and maybe you have to let people go at times. You need to have meetings, both impromptu and scheduled. They need to be audio and video meetings. You need to have that persisted chat experience so that people, maybe if you're a global company, people on the other side of the world don't feel like they're always missing out, right? So that's low-hanging fruit for this whole inner loop experience. You can segment out all of the topics that this team is working on by using channels. Certainly we want to collaborate on shared files. We want to have task management so we can delegate things. We want to have a calendar so we can all keep on task. And we want to be able to measure insights as we talked about before. But HR is pretty specific in that they don't want to miss out on engaging with the rest of the company, right? And so if you look at this, the rest of the employees need someone where they can go, somewhere where they can go, and have a community for best practices, right? Where they can share, hey, you know, everybody else here know that our benefits covered X, Y, and Z, you know, and kind of sharing those things and making people's experiences from an employee perspective better without even necessarily having to jump into those conversations. Also open to other departments. So somebody in finance might be interested in coming to work in HR. So being able to cross over using this outer loop, you know, solution to see what's going on in that part of the company. Again, you also want to be able to share files with those people. And another key scenario is crowdsourcing ideas. So if you look at these, obviously on the right-hand side, all of the employees are able to interact and have that kind of best practices community for HR, but also be able to engage with HR. They would leverage Yammer, right? They can use it on their phone, they can use it in the browser, they can use it in an embedded web part on a SharePoint site somewhere, on a MacBook, whatever, right? On the left-hand side, that inner loop is perfectly solved. It is smack dab in the center of a perfect scenario to use Microsoft Teams. So at this point, you're probably thinking, hey, those are two different solutions and I don't want to have to jump around. Well, here's where, remember my claim that Teams is becoming the hub for teamwork. This is where you see that in action, right? So if I'm part of HR and I never want to miss out on things that are happening in the HR group in Yammer where all the rest of the employees are trying to engage with us, then one of the things that I love about Teams is I can use things like connectors, and I can go in and say, hey, anytime there is a new conversation, or there's a lot of other options, but in this scenario I said, hey, when there's a new conversation in our HR group in Yammer, I want to pull that into the HR general channel in Microsoft Teams. So I'm part of the HR team where we're a group of people, we're creating policies and procedures. Again, we're hiring and firing people, we're discussing wages, all of those things that happen behind the scenes. But you'll see how easy it is to reach out and connect with that outer loop. So people trying to engage us, we can easily do that using Microsoft Teams by using something we call a connector. So if you look real close here, one of the things that we do is in Teams, this conversation comes in, I can see that this employee has a question, and I can reach out and say, hey, Alex, can you follow up with this employee? And so Alex comes back in Teams and says, sure thing. Well, in the old days, Alex would have had to bounce out and go and actually log into Office 365, click on Yammer, find the HR group and go find that discussion. But here's another great example of how we are able to pull in all of those rich experiences, including the full Yammer experience, right into that general channel within the HR team. So instead of Alex having to bounce out and go somewhere else to connect to the HR team, he's going to just click on the HR tab in the general channel where it defaults to the human resources group in Yammer, and he can simply go in and answer the person's question, which is a super easy way of connecting that inner and outer loop using Microsoft Teams. So again, the HR team is a great example of that inner loop. You know, any group of people in your company coming together to get something done, super important. Use Microsoft Teams for that. And then anything where you're trying to engage and drive things like corporate culture or expose your all employees to an initiative that you're trying to drive, those are perfect for that outer loop communication, right? So if you have an engineering department, they're probably missing out on some great ideas from people across the company who could give them some great feedback. So that's that outer loop, and that was driven by Yammer, right? So kind of the glue that holds all this together is this whole idea of Office 365 groups. And so I want to take a few moments just to tell you how we've architected Microsoft Teams and really Microsoft 365 in general to give you a great experience and how we accomplish all that integration into Microsoft Teams. So when you are, as a user, go in and you create a Microsoft team, the first thing we do is we say, hey, let's go into, and this is where, you know, put your geek hat on or your nerd hat on for a minute. This is where we go into Azure Active Directory and we say, let's create a container, let's name it something, and let's put the people that Brent wants to invite to this into that container, right? And so we literally are creating an object in Azure AD, and we're saying, hey, let's name it whatever Brent wants to name it, and let's put the people in that he's going to collaborate with. This is true, by the way, for many other group collaboration experiences across Microsoft 365. So this isn't unique to Teams. This is what happens moving forward when you're in Yammer, SharePoint Online, Microsoft Planner, or even Outlook groups. And so, again, Teams isn't unique. I just want to tell you the end result, because this is where all that magic happens. So as a person that creates this, after we create that group and say, we know what you want to name it, and we know who you want to collaborate with, we are going to provision all of these fantastic services that are all leveraging the different parts of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 behind the scenes. So for example, all of the files that you'll interact with people within Teams will either be in OneDrive for Business or SharePoint Online, right? We'll have a document library in a SharePoint team site, a modern team site with responsive UI that you'll be able to go and find all of your documents in. You never have to go to SharePoint, mind you, within Teams. We just use that back end for all of the files that you would want to collaborate with people on. And so think of the value you get there, right? All of the document management capabilities like version control and data loss prevention, the ability to restore those files, all of that goodness you get just because we're leveraging Office 365 behind the scenes, specifically SharePoint for all your documents. Then again, we provision a planner so you can assign tasks to all of these people that you invite to this Microsoft team. You have a shared calendar, a shared mailbox. We have integration directly with Power BI. We provision a stream video channel, so you can literally embed that right into a channel somewhere. And then we also provision this OneNote notebook for all your research and meeting minutes and all of that stuff. So that's how we pull off all this integrated goodness within Microsoft Teams to the rest of Office 365, right? And so at this point, we want to take a look. I'm going to hand this over to Chris, and then I'll come back after he's done with his wonderful demonstration, and we will close it out. So Chris, the next 30 minutes are yours, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brendan. Thank you for the good overview on inner and outer loop and how these products connect together. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Lahamadou. I'm a peer of Brent's. I'm a collaboration TSP based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And I want to run through a demonstration of Microsoft Teams, sort of showing you some specific examples of how the platform comes together, how it's very easy for groups of people within an organization to build targeted productivity experiences leveraging Microsoft Teams. Teams can be accessed through a number of different endpoints. As you can see right now, I'm in a browser, in this case Microsoft Edge on my Windows 10 device, and I've signed into Office 365, and I have a number of productivity experiences available to me, and I can simply click on Teams, and this will bring me into the web-based experience of Microsoft Teams. It goes ahead and signs me in with my corporate credentials. You don't see I'm not prompted for passwords or anything, and it will load up the Teams UI and the Teams experience. You can also access Microsoft Teams in all the browsers like Chrome or Firefox or Safari, which means it's great on any of the devices that you have. You can also download the Teams app from the App Store of your choice, iOS or Android. A lot of people will also spend a fair amount of their day in the Teams full client that is available on PC as well as Mac. And again, it's the same experience across platforms. You're going to get a consistent UI and experience. Let's talk through the UI here on Microsoft Teams for just a minute. On the left-hand side, you see we have a number of different pivots, if you will, that show me the different areas I can dive deeper into around my Teams experience, and we'll talk about most of these over the next 25 minutes or so. You can see I have a list of teams here within the UI. As Brent talked about, there is we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the human resources example and how the HR team can work and come together. You'll also notice that there's a number of notifications here. One of the important things about communication platforms is to know what is important to me, or where did I leave off, or what is something that may be top of mind for me. And Teams allows you to both drive conversations through the use of @mentions and other gestures, but also provides you visibility into things that maybe are where you need to focus and have attention. If I expand the Contoso HR team, you'll see we have a number of different channels that are broken out that provide those targeted productivity experiences. If I select the general channel, you'll see we default to a tab on the right-hand side for the conversation. So this is where the HR team can have their conversations. And think of the general channel that comes with every team as sort of the team's bulletin board, right? It's the place where you're going to have persistent conversations that will help the team understand sort of what the purpose is, or maybe my broad announcements for the team. And let's just show what one of these would look like. For starters, maybe I want to create an announcement here, and I want to leverage that @mention capability. When we think about @mentions, we typically think about @mentioning a person, but you actually have the ability to @mention an entire group, right? So I can @mention Contoso HR, and I can say, welcome to Microsoft Teams. this is where we will come together. You can see spell check is actively working. I can also expand this to maybe provide a little bit more context here. Maybe I want to provide a subject line so that people understand as they're looking through the set of persistent chats, what is this related to, right? So this is the welcome message. I can also potentially say, mark this as important. Maybe I also want to add some other personalization or a little bit more of an emotion into the conversation thread. I can leverage something simple like an emoji to bring in a, sort of a social sentiment, or I could leverage things like GIFs or memes to be able to provide sort of a, more rich and engaging and lively experience, right? That reflects the personality and the culture of the group. So here I have, I've been able to post a message, and others within the Contoso HR team, the other members of the team, will get a notification similar to this that lets them know, hey, this is important. Then they'll also get a notification both in their activity feed as well as in the team's channel will highlight to let them know that there's something they want to engage in, there's something that they want to plug in with. One of the things you'll also see now that you see my picture is we're pulling in presence. So one of the great things about a persistent chat experience is to know when are others available, when can I engage with others. So as I move through the conversations, if there's a follow-up item, etc., I'll know or have that sense of, are they available? Can I engage with them? Could I potentially even elevate this from a persistent chat experience to one that includes voice or even voice and video, right? So a lot of capabilities to help bring the team together. As I move down through the list of channels on the left-hand side, you can see the HR team is leveraging channels for different topics to provide specific productivity experiences. So as I arrive in the benefits channel, I know that everything in here should be related to benefits, conversations, etc. Here I see where Isaiah, a colleague of mine, has mentioned the channel, right? So you can mention teams, but you can also mention channels to kind of get the people that are maybe spending a little bit more time on benefits or more focused on benefits, lets them know that there's, again, something top of mind, something to work with. These tab experiences across the top include a number of different capabilities by default. So we know that for any particular channel, there's going to be a conversation that's going to be had. We want to provide people a place to store their files and file content, but maybe we want to also provide some other productivity experiences tied to benefits such that I don't have to go someplace else, right? So in this particular case, the human resources team is working with one provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I've brought the Blue Cross Blue Shield website right into the channel for benefits within my HR Microsoft team. So as Brent said, I don't have to go someplace else. I don't have to hop around to other windows. I have the productivity experiences that are meaningful and useful to me right here in this specific channel. And I could go ahead and engage in this website and drill around and get the information that I need. Another scenario where we see a lot of organizations leveraging teams is around bringing up and doing content authoring and content documents. In this particular case, again, a coworker of mine has mentioned me specifically and said, hey, Isaiah said, hey, we should be working on a work from home policy. What do I think? What do I think? I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to leverage another familiar social gesture, a like, to let people know. You'll also notice that, as I said, Teams keeps track of where I left off. So it's keeping track of where did you last engage in this particular channel's conversation. So it knows that this was net new for me and all of the things were older. And that's really important for a couple of reasons. Number one, it helps me keep track of and engage with the conversations, unlike an inbox, which you either have, I've read it or I've not read it. Here I get this contextual understanding of conversation based on the channel. The other thing about persistent conversation is great that if you have, dynamic teams or agile teams, maybe not necessarily for HR, which tends to be a little more solid, but say you've got a project team where you maybe have a dynamic set of members. As the new people come on board, if they were having a conversation over, say, a distribution list or over email, if they weren't part of the team, they weren't on this distribution list, so they didn't know what was happening within that particular project. Here, when they join the team, they can come into the specific channels where their focused areas might be, and they can get up to speed very quickly, leveraging that persistent chat history. So I think Megan's idea here or excuse me, Isaiah's idea here is great. I think we should work on a work from home policy. Let's do that, and let's do that right here within Teams. So if I pivot over to the files experiences, again, for company policies, you'll see if I click on new, I have a number of different options. One of which is the Word experience right here. So if I click on new and Word document, I can say that this is going to be the work from home policy. And I can go ahead and create this document right here. I don't have to go someplace else. And what will happen is the online version of Word will spin up, and here, without having to leave Teams, I can go through and now start authoring this policy right here from within the Teams experience. So I come in here and I can give this some information here. I can say this is the work from home policy. I can leverage some formatting here to make this look nice. This is the title. I can say that this is an important benefit at Contoso, right? Whatever it is. So I've keyed in some information. Again, I've not had to leave my Teams experience. It's right here. The other thing that I can do, again, right from within Teams, is it's an integrated experience, is I can start a conversation about this document, right? So I can click on Start Conversation on the right-hand side here, and what will happen is a conversation panel will spin up, and I can engage with others within the organization and let them know that, hey, it would be a good idea for you to jump in and take action on this particular document or this content. Once I do, I could potentially notify others within the organization that, hey, there's a new policy here and it might be interesting and for you to jump in and work on. And so in doing so, I can quickly maybe say, for example, Isaiah, who wanted this policy in the first place, saw that I created a new document, and he can actually get, from his Team's experience, jump into the same document at the same time. And now two or three or a number of us can all co-author at the same time, building out the same content. And again, I'm in Teams. You can see Isaiah hopped into the document, and he basically says, this is great, but it needs more cowbell. Right, whatever. So I have this, again, interactive experience to build content. I didn't have to leave Teams. I didn't have to go someplace else. I'm in here working on my content right from within the experience. And so we can have this collaborative engagement right here within the platform, and I can go ahead and move around that. So as I'm co-authoring, we're good. And as Isaiah leaves, I have that understanding of who's in the document and knowing what's happening right here, again, all without having to leave the Teams UI. Really super helpful. If I pivot over to the employee engagement channel, again, I'm moving through these. Oh, one more thing about the company policies. In this particular case, we're authoring policies, right? This company policies area, because this is a team for HR, it's a team just for HR to work on content. But we're going to work on policies in draft, and then at some point, what we want to do is just publish them out to the organization. Here, I've added a tab that would link me over to our published company policies on our intranet portal that runs in SharePoint Online. And so as I'm working on my content, it would be very easy for me to take these draft policies and copy them right into the published policy area and take them live within the portal. Again, all without having to leave Teams. If I pivot over to employee engagement, let's say, here's a couple of examples of that bridge of the inner and outer loop, right? So in this particular place, I want to know what's happening across one or more Yammer groups to hear what are people talking about in the organization. How can we understand what people are thinking or what issues are important to them? And so here I've set up a connector between this particular channel's conversation stream and the conversations that are happening in the leadership connection group within Yammer. And so without having to go someplace else, as new conversation elements land here in this conversation channel, I'll be able to see them. I'll be able to interact with them. I could like, or I could jump out and view the conversation, or I could have an experience with the rest of the HR team to say, you know, hey, we should look into this, right? I can mention somebody else and suggest, hey, we should consider looking into this or what have you. So I could say, hey, at Lydia, we should talk with Isaiah about this, right? And so when we're taking a conversation or activities that are happening in the Yammer and then in the outer loop, and then we're transitioning them into action within our inner loop, right? So really great in that I don't have to go someplace else to do that. You'll also see that we not only make sure that you're aware of new conversations in the left-hand side here, but you're also aware of new elements that are added to a particular team. So here, a coworker of mine has added in a tab that surfaces our, sort of where we're at in our Contoso annual survey that we're building out in Microsoft Forms. So Microsoft Forms, a great way to build surveys or quizzes that you could publish out to your organization. You can see you could build a rich set of question options, in asking for departments, keywords or text boxes, rating systems, sorting systems, more verbose text boxes. And so I can see both the survey as well as the analytics on the survey right here within Microsoft Teams. I don't have to go anywhere. I get some basic analytics on number of responses, how long it takes people to complete it, whether or not the survey is active or not, and I can get some understanding of what's happening within the particular survey, again, without having to leave Teams. It's all right here for me to engage in. Here, I also have a channel for recruitment. Right, we want to make sure we have these, again, rich conversations or threaded conversations around retaining or bringing in new employees. And so part of the establishing recruitment efforts for the HR team is to figure out, well, what is the rest of the organization looking for? What do we think the demand is going to be, and how do we prioritize our efforts? Right, so if I think about planning, I'm also then thinking about business intelligence. So here I have a tab for business intelligence, again, integrated contextually right into the recruitment channel for the HR team. So when I click on business intelligence, here I have this very rich Power BI report that I can interact with. I have all this information, including geographical data, heat maps, and others, and I can go ahead from right here and refine on, let's say, all right, let's focus on finance and figure out, what kinds of professions are they looking for? What is the number of vacancies? This will tell us sort of where we need to prioritize our work. So I don't have to go anywhere. I'm right here within Teams. I can do my work. Maybe I want to, from here, spin up some job descriptions in the files area for recruitment, or look at some more data around overall positions that are available, or maybe look at a listing of potential employees. If I go over to the training channel here, again, from the list of customizations, here again we have a set of rich threaded conversations that I can catch up on. And as it relates to another a way to integrate Office 365 services into Teams, you'll see here I've brought in an employee onboarding channel from Microsoft Stream. So it's a way for me to bring in video elements that exist outside of Microsoft Teams that may be surfaced elsewhere, but here I have that content ready and available to me right here within Teams. So as we're providing employee onboarding information or building that rich set of video information for getting employees up to speed or et cetera, here I have access to that channel of content, and I can go through and decide, do we need some more video content? Do we need to refine something that's here? Again, not having to leave Teams, it's all in context right here. So I want to talk about, you'll see we also have some more channels available here. So one of the things that's also very important in terms of engaging with teams and communications is the ability to set some personal priority, right? So for me, as a member of HR, as a member of a number of other virtual teams, you can see, I might want to establish some priority for what channels I think are important and what are meaningful to me and which are not. So you can see that if I click on more channels, we have two other channels in here, one for events and one for reviews. And you'll notice there's an asterisk here, right? So I could choose to maybe favorite this channel, and it will add it into the channels that are sort of top of mind for me. So if I'm a part of a group or a team that has lots of channels because they have a lot of things broken down, but I really only want to focus on certain elements because of my role or my set of priorities or my focus, then I can favorite those channels that are important to me. And I can also tune whether or not I want to follow a channel. So following a channel influences whether or not the posts show up in my activity stream. So again, if I want this content to be top of mind for me, and I want it to be fed to my activity stream, which we'll review in a minute, then I can prioritize these communications as I need to. And if they're not, then I can choose to not follow them, and then I can engage with this content when it's useful and meaningful to me or when I have the time to do so. As it relates to the events channel here, a new one for me, I see again my old buddy Isaiah asking, hey, events, how should we start prepping for the Contoso annual event? Well, I think it would be fantastic to start prepping for that right now. And let's build an integration here, leveraging Microsoft Planner. So if you can see if I click on plus to add a new tab, we can bring in lots of different productivity experiences. Here we'll focus on Microsoft Planner. And in this particular case, I'm going to be asked about creating a new plan, or maybe even referencing an existing one if I already had one. So we're going to say this is for the Contoso annual event. And when I click save, and I can also choose to post to the channel about this tab, and it's a way for me to let other people know and draw to their attention that, hey, there's something new, net new from a productivity experience in the channel, and it will show up in the conversation stream. I'll actually just go ahead and do that. And so when I click save, now at the top, I have in context here, this Contoso annual event tab, and now I have the ability to do things where I can leverage work management. I can create a series of tasks. I can add new buckets, pre-event tasks. So I can organize my tasks as I need to. And if I want to, say, create a new task here, I can simply create a plus sign, and I can say we want to decide on event venue. And if I say OK, I can go ahead and apply some more details here. I can assign the task to someone. Maybe I'll give this task to Christine. In this particular case, I can specify progress information, start date information. More importantly, oftentimes the task is due date. So maybe I want to have the venue decided on in a couple of weeks. I can provide a description here, some context to let people know what I expect. As I assign the person the task, they're going to get an email notification. I can also put in a little sub checklist of items or things that are important, or maybe some sub steps that are of interest here, or attach some files. And then we can also have a conversation specific to this task, right? So a lot of teams are very transient, and work management is about the team empowered to keep track of all the things that they're working on and to handle them themselves. So if I have a conversation here about this particular task element, as somebody, maybe Christine needs to go on vacation for spring break coming up soon, somebody else from the team can see the task that's in here even though it's assigned to her. They've seen that maybe we're lagging a little bit. They can jump in, see the conversation stream, figure out what needs to be done, and jump in and help out with the task in a very collaborative manner. And again, all within the context of the events channel right within Teams. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to see anything else. So I can go through here, and I've now assigned this task. And if I wanted to, move these around or drag and drop or whatever, I could do all that very simply and easily. So very easy to go. One other capability that you have within a team is the ability to change the conversation paradigm from chat to voice and video. And so from here, I could click on this Meet Now button, and what would happen is it would spin up a voice and potentially video call for all of the members of the team that are online, so that we can all get up to speed very quickly on a topic. So in an example in HR, maybe we've had some kind of an incident that we need to deal with, something that was brought to our attention we need to work on. I can quickly get the team up to speed and engaged using the Meet Now capability. Or if I'm looking at some other examples, like say IT, where we're doing agile project development, and we want to have we've found some kind of a defect that we need to get all the minds of the team together on and work through the issue, then Meet Now as a capability is fantastic for that. You'll see that I've got a number of other different capabilities around, or a number of other teams in here to show off different sets of capabilities. So here I have an example of like the Mark 8 project team, where it's a project team that's broad across the organization, and where I've got actually different functional units coming together to talk about this particular team. So they can all jump in and again have their contextual part to the overall project. So engineering and manufacturing and marketing and R&D all have a place where they can come together and work through within the team. Or maybe, so for example, the procurement team wants to work on collaborating documents, looking at maybe some contract information. Maybe they want to do some internal collaboration around some software renewals, bring in some people from legal to help out with that. Or maybe they want to collaborate with those outside of the organization. We announced last week, starting rolling out this week, that we're rolling in the ability for you to collaborate with lots of different types of guests outside of your organization if you so choose. And those could include people that are current Office 365 for subscribers, and also those that are not. If I look at some other teams, here we have, for example, the Contoso IT team, where maybe they're doing something within GitHub or Visual Studio Team Services or some other sort of agile software development methodology, and they want to bring those targeted experiences right into their team through a channel that's contextual and provides that context. I'm a member of a number of different teams here. At the top, you can see this list. I also have a more area just below this. So much like I can favorite channels and influence them from a conversation standpoint, I can also favorite or influence the teams that I want to be top of mind. So maybe the Mark 8 project team is something that is useful to me. I want to have it in my list of favorites so that when I open up the client and I select the teams node, it's right there top of mind and available to me. Or maybe there's other teams that I'm a member of, such as business development, where I get to that as I need to, and I just want to be able to prioritize my interaction with these various teams. But you'll notice I still know that, hey, if I pivot into business development, there's something for me to look at here. I can see that there's context or conversations that are happening under opportunities that might be interesting or available to me. Similarly, with this X1015 launch team, I see that there's something that's very specific that I want to follow along. So it again allows you to have that curated, targeted set of productivity experiences that allows me to bring in other productivity experiences without having to go outside of Microsoft Teams. I mentioned the activity feed here briefly. So this is where I will see that running list of new sets of activities that are happening. So as my teams are engaging within the conversations and other elements and files and what have you, this information will land right here within the Microsoft Teams experience in the activity feed. I can see which of those channels or tasks are important, and simply by clicking on this element, I'm taken right to the channel within the team, so I don't have to remember what's where. I can just kind of quickly hop to the conversations that are interesting and useful to me. The chat tab here allows for a couple of things. First of all, it allows for me to have one-on-one conversations with others. So if I don't want to have a, sort of a broad conversation within my team, but I just want to reach out to an individual, here you can see I have a targeted conversation with Isaiah. I could also have a conversation with multiple people. So I can spin up a new conversation simply by clicking on this new chat, and I can type in the name of someone within the organization like Adele, and then we could have a targeted conversation right from within here to include all the same sets of conversations, etc. I also have access to TBot. So TBot is our short for TeamsBot, and it's our learning experience that we integrate into Teams to help people better understand what are the things that I can do with Teams and how can I best leverage it? So if you're a sort of more of a read the manual person, if you pick the help tab here, you can see we have kind of a rich document, if you will. If you're more of an FAQ person, you want to think about things in that way, you can go ahead and look up an FAQ. If you like sort of short snackable videos, you can put those in here as well too. Or you could actually have a conversation with TBot. So you could say, how do I add a channel? And so when I ask a question, TBot then allows me to have this dialogue back and forth on the help information to better understand, hey, this is what you're looking for. This is the sort of prescriptive steps on how to create it, etc. Also, in terms of integrated experiences, you'll know I have a meetings tab here where I bring in my calendar. So again, I don't have to go to someplace else. I can see my calendar information right here, including the ability to schedule meetings from right within here. We're bringing in the ability for you to do calling and telephony right within the Teams experience. So depending on what your organization is doing from a telephony perspective, that will be an integrated experience as well. And you'll also see that we have a files experience right here within the platform. So I don't have to go someplace else. I can see the files that I'm working on, including that file that we just created. If I just want to get back to a file, I don't have to remember where it is. My recent files is built for me, or I can see the files across Microsoft Teams, Or I can integrate right here with my OneDrive for Business. So I can not necessarily have to go to that experience either. I can see my personal data that are files that are mine, and I don't have to go someplace else. They're right here in context. So a really great way, a great set of experiences here within Microsoft Teams to bring together all of these productivity experiences without having to jump around. I can be very engaged with my team across a number of different experiences, have that targeted productivity that's built out through the set of channels that are prescriptive and allow me to be very productive, all without having to leave Teams. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Brent to take us home.
So make sure you come back for the part 2 of this Microsoft Teams series. After that, I'm sure we'll have sessions on covering things like SharePoint, specifically things like site hubs or hub sites and communication sites. If you haven't heard of new experiences like Power Apps and Flow, we'll definitely introduce you to those things and tell you how they can make you as a power user much more efficient. We'll even pull back the layers of the experiences like Power BI that we talked about a little bit and show you how some of those things happen. And there'll be many, many more. So again, to stay connected with us, just visit TryThisAtWork. This is where you'll also see the recording of this webcast along with every other future webcast that we conduct. Again, that's where you'll be able to go and join the next session that we'll have on the 17th. We'll also start introducing surveys, so we'd love to have you give us feedback on what you'd like to see us cover next. And so that's a way for us to engage you using our own technology at Microsoft, leveraging surveys that are part of Microsoft 365. And again, don't forget, we've had some entries already, but don't forget to enter for your chance to win that fabulous Wobo wallet. And all the instructions for doing that are on our website, TryThisAtWork. Thank you. You guys have been great. We've had a ball. Chris, again, great work on the demo. Thank you and goodbye for now.
Thank you, everybody.